You've had a good day one. Nobody can argue with that. Let's talk about what happens next, though, with Airbus. You've launched the A321XLR today. That's tough news for Boeing. What else are you going to do that's going to make life tougher for Boeing?
Well, we're going to commercialize the plane. We started today. More will come with more customers moving forward. We believe it's a very good value proposition, having the A321neo being already a long-range plane. Now we go extra long-range. So this is offering a lot of opportunities for our customers. And yes, basically we are going to the market with it.
Okay, and next, Boeing are having problems on a number of different areas at the moment. We'll talk about trade in a moment, but let's first talk about the MAX and the problems that it is having with those. Can you take more of an advantage of that? Now, I suspect what you're going to say to me is no, because our order book is so full for the A320neo. But is there nothing you can do?
Well, we're concentrating on our own activities, on what we think is right to be done by Airbus for our customers. When it comes to the single aisle, we have a very strong demand. It was the case last year, it will be the case this year, it will be the case next year. So we are ramping up the production, going from 50 airplanes a month to 60, that's the challenge of the year. And then we have said we're going to go to rate 63 by 2021. So it's a significant ramp up of a very strong plane, now adding the XLR to the family. That is what's next.
Are you being held back by the engine manufacturers?
We had a difficult 2018, as you remember, when it comes to being supported by the engine makers. In 2019, we have the engines on time, so that's a positive change compared to last year, but we would like to have more engines moving forward for the next years. And still we are awaiting their commitments to go for higher numbers.
Let's ask you a question about something else that you could do, because you have something up that sleeve of yours, which is the A220. You build a bigger version of that, then you're not constrained by the problems that you have with the A320 line. You could sell more of those. I'm trying to figure out kind of ways that you could take maybe a little advantage of this, that Airbus can sell a few more planes.
Yeah, so ramping up the 320 is a challenge and also a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah.
We're happy to be in a similar situation on the A220. We have launched recently the new assembly line of the A220 in Mobile, Alabama, where we have already the A320. And on the 220, it's the same story. It's ramping up the production of very good planes with a strong demand. So these are our challenges. They are good challenges. I call them the good problems.
Let's talk about China. We have a trade war. We don't know how it's going to be resolved yet between the United States and China. Do you get a sense, though, that we are going to be seeing more orders coming for Airbus aircraft out of China as a result of that? Again, is there can you see any advantage in this?
We have a historical strong relationship with China. We have an assembly line of the A320 as well. In China, in Tianjin, we've produced more than 400 planes, 10th anniversary of this assembly line, and this is a very strong commitment to China and to the Chinese market. So we continue to grow, to ramp up, to serve the needs of China, and I think we are perceived as a very strong and loyal partner of the Chinese airlines, and that's the way we want to grow.
Do you see yourself having an advantage, though? Is President Trump giving you an advantage in China as a result of what he's doing?
We think at Airbus we have a strong product advantage. The A320 is the most successful plane at the moment. We go with the 321. The Neo has been a big game changer. Now we go with LR, XLR. This is fulfilling the market demand, and that's what makes us very strong.
Politics plays no part in this.
There's always politics in the background. You need to keep going steadily, keeping the eyes on the ball.
You bring up the issue of the plant that you have there. Your COO is currently conducting a review of the way that Airbus makes aircraft. Could you do more in China, and would that lead to greater orders?
We are doing more in China. We have, on top of assembly lines, placed production, and we localize more activity in China because we think we can take benefit of the Chinese ecosystem for China, but as well for the rest of the world. And that's the way other industries have managed to be successful long-term in China. That's our commitment to China. But obviously we need to look at the entire picture and make sure we remain competitive overall.
We are seeing consolidation in other parts of the industry at the moment. UTX, UTC, Raytheon is obviously one part of that. They are betting that scale is going to bring huge advantages. Do you think that Airbus is going to be paying a little bit of the bill, maybe, for some of those advantages that they gain? They're talking about $1 billion cost savings after 4 years. Is Airbus going to be paying some of that?
Cost savings would be positive if they translate into better prices. So it's a bit too early for us to know exactly what will come out of it. We have had the first exchanges, the first discussions with the new leadership or the existing leadership for the new structure. And we've been, very clear that we want them to continue to be performing on the Pratt & Whitney business, where we are obviously a very big customer, very important one, but as well on the UTAS business. So, yeah, staying focused on their existing business, and if there are benefits or synergies on the long term, we would like to to benefit from it.
I'm sure you would, but at this point, you don't see any obvious reason why you would object to that merger.
It's too early to answer this question. We need to have the full understanding of how this is going to be managed, what it will mean for customers, for ourselves, and that's what we expect to know in the coming weeks and months.
Where do you see demand, big picture, going? This week we're going to have a Federal Reserve meeting. The Federal Reserve may point to rate cuts. We may see similar messages coming from the ECB very soon. There is a sense that the global economy is slowing down. How is that going to manifest itself for Airbus? You've got a very solid order book at the moment. Does that make you recession-proof?
No, nobody can be pretending to be protected against the bigger threat, but in the aviation sector at the moment, we see growth, we see a sustained growth and sustainable growth, and in spite of the difficulties here and there, we continue to see a very strong demand. So as far as we are concerned, you should expect a very positive Paris Air Show with a lot of orders. We have a very strong order book, which is to some extent a nice protection against short-term evolution. It's a long-term commitment of the market, and obviously what is the most important thing is we see a very strong demand for people around the world for connectivity and traveling by plane, and this is basically what is fueling this industry.
So you don't get any sense that there is a slowdown taking place at the moment?
We see up and downs here and there. We see overall a very strong demand.
Where do you see the downs, out of curiosity?
We've seen recently some airlines being in difficulties, or even the situation of some of them going bankrupt, which shows that there is a very strong and competitive market when it comes to airlines, and this is triggering up and downs. But when we look to the east, to India, to China, to Asia, there is a very strong demand growing again. So this is maybe one of the growth engine in the world for aviation.
Let's talk about growth engines of a different kind. Let's talk about the future. When do you start to put hybrid engines onto your aircraft?
That's an interesting question. Airbus is very committed to environment protection when it comes to the future, and therefore inventing a decarbonized aviation. On the short term, we are reducing the fuel burn of our planes. We're introducing new generation of planes. The XLR is one of them. When you compare to the previous generation, it's a much lower level of fuel burn. But we are as well looking at other ways of decarbonizing when it goes into the future with different fuels, sustainable fuels, but as well, yes, going electric. And hybrid is the first way of going electric before we go full electric on the long term and starting by the short distances.
Do you expect that there's a kind of generational shift taking place at the moment? A younger generation that is concerned about flying because of the environmental impact that it's going to have. You just talked about some of those technologies. Do you think there is a danger that you have to move faster on some of those technologies? Could you move faster if you needed to?
So on the one hand, it's important to have in mind the figures. Commercial aviation is 2.5% of the carbon emissions in the world. So that's a small share, but it's a share. If we don't do anything about it, it's going to grow. So the pressure coming from the outside, from the many stakeholders, is in fact good news. It puts pressure on the industry to get faster, to get better, and we like it. That's the way we make progress become reality, and it's about innovation. That's what we like.
When do you think we're going to see the next sort of evolution? It's interesting, I was talking to your colleagues over at Boeing a little bit earlier on, and they're sticking with the MAX, and as a result of which we're probably going to see the next narrow body in what, 2030? Is that when we should look for the next evolution?
We are at the moment where we are developing the technologies for this future generation of new planes. It's going to take 4 or 5 years maybe to mature the technologies. We believe the next launch of a new platform on the single aisle will be a decarbonized platform with new forms of propulsion to reach this commitment of decarbonation. Therefore, it's a launch of a product at the end of the next decade. But when we talk about technologies of that complexity, in fact, it's tomorrow.